Thank you. Welcome. Hello. This is going to be kind of a fun, interesting John cast, and I want to keep things. Um, Hold on. I'm going to need this keyboard. Okay, there we go. Can you guys hear me all right? I hope you can hear me. Give me a thumbs up or something if you can hear me. Because we're going to go through some history, and it's going to be kind of fun. Okay, you can hear me. Good. Let's see. So, as sort of a guide to what we're doing, I'm going to give you Disforia's YouTube page. And we're going to go through Disforia's video content here, because there's some interesting history and fun history here. I also need to pull up Metal Archive so I get the dates right. So it's interesting. We're going to be doing this live stream, and we're going to cover the rise and fall of Dysphoria. It feels so weird saying that because, like, in my mind, Dysphoria is still like an ember within the ashes, and it could still start something, even if it's a little flame, just a little fire. So it's weird for me to say the rise and fall of Dysphoria because I still love Dysphoria. But let's be honest here. It has been 4 years. 4 years since we have been active. But that's a testament, I think, to how good Dysphoria is / was, that we still have people bringing up Dysphoria all the time. We only have one full length and 2 EPs, one of which EPs people don't even hardly know about. I don't even know if you can listen to it. It's called Awakening from 2009. So anyways, we're going to go through. Oh, and let me see if I can find. There's one other fun thing that I want to share with you guys. I wish that we could all like be in my office here, which is kind of trashed, by the way. What I want to find is the earliest of the early Dysphoria stuff that there ever was. Because it's really good. And by really good, I mean, well, we were young and enthusiastic. But the funny thing, too, about Dysphoria is you look it up on YouTube and you'll get metal, you'll get Dysphoria, but you'll also get like videos about people dealing with gender dysphoria. So I didn't make the band name. So maybe that's a good place to start. I don't know if I can find the oldest of the old, not on YouTube anyways. There was one other video here that I thought was, well, anyways. Okay, so Dysphoria obviously is the opposite of euphoria, and the band name was come up with by Casey and Chad. I don't know if there's any particular meaning behind why that was chosen as the band name, but yeah, you'll have to tune in because I believe this Saturday we're going to be meeting all of the band to do a video. Basically what I'm doing, but everybody's perspective. So disclaimer here, this is all from my perspective. So anyways, Dysphoria I joined in 2008, which is interesting because, let's see, I actually want to... There's so much history. I need to go back and compile all of this because we go way back. Yeah, it's not showing on YouTube. Let me make one more attempt because this is there's only 4 of you here right now. But you will be part of a very exclusive group of people. Yes, I believe this is it. You're going to be part of a very exclusive group. No, that's not it. Well, I'll find it and I'll post it because there's some very good. Wow, this stuff is old. I wish you could be here. Okay, I guess I'll stop trying to find interesting tidbits and I'll just find them and share them on Facebook throughout the week or something. But yeah, so for those of you who know Austin Bentley, who's in Machines of Man and a new band called Fervence, him and I knew each other in high school and we were frenemies, you could say. Um, Tyler Gibson and I started the band Shadowseer, and basically Tyler and I were performing at high school, that kind of thing, doing talent shows and whatnot. And Austin, when he found Tyler and I, it was like, oh, other people who like music similar to me. And they're reasonably talented, for being what, 17, 18 years old. Well, anyway, so Austin asks us to join his band called Rack and Hide. And we were told that that's a German name. And of course, I speak German. I can tell you now, Rackenhide means nothing in German. It's nonsense. So all this was probably 2017 or so. So we join Rackenhide and we do like Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. We do Enter Sandman by Metallica, the Power Rangers theme song. 2 Minutes to Midnight by Iron Maiden. We do all these like stereotypical like cover songs, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We had a really good first show as Rack and Hide, and that got us all high on the idea of being in a band. And then we played a second show, and I kind of flubbed, and Tyler kind of flubbed. Everybody just kind of didn't do a good job, and people had already seen us, family and friends. So the second show, not as many people came, not as many people cared or pretended to care. So we kind of, well, I was going to say we fell apart, but what really happened, if I'm being honest, is Austin and the rest of the band kicked Tyler and I out of the band. Now, the way they did this was, they said, we're not leaving Rack and Hide. We're going on to form our own band. And it was like, okay, we're kicked out. That's fine. And so this big rivalry happened where Austin's new band called Apparition was trucking along. And then Tyler and I were like, ooh, we have an axe to grind now. So we start our own band called Prophecy, which would later become Shadowseer. And so we had this like two bands, like butting heads, rivalry going on. And it was actually a lot of fun. But because I don't know, like I'm the kind of person, like I really like competition. I get really into it and I like lose myself. And it doesn't mean I hate you. Like if I'm playing Risk against you, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to destroy you. Do you understand me? Your life will be crushed. That doesn't mean I hate you. At the end of the game, we're all friends. But I don't know. I think that doesn't totally apply to the rivalry that Apparition and Prophecy had, because I think we did have what do you call it, animus between us. We did not like each other, but this weird relationship over the years, because we started out like hating each other, but then over the years, from my perspective, it feels like we got a little bit more frenemy like instead of enemy, and we like pretended to like each other more and pretended to work together, and then it started to happen that we kind of did support each other and stuff. But what ended up happening is like Prophecy kept going and it turned into Shadowseer, and we did fine. It's a good starter band, a good like, garage band. But then Apparition really kind of fell apart. And so just put that over here for a second, because like I'm over here, I'm in Prophecy, Shadowseer, and I get frustrated with the way that Shadowseer, Prophecy, is going, because I don't want to talk smack, but it's like they weren't the best musicians, good music, but I felt like my skills were not being properly utilized. So I put up a couple of ads on like, whatever classifieds there were for band members at the time. And I get an email from Chad Anderson at a certain point, and he's like, "Hey, we're looking for a new vocalist. Um, what kind of bands do you like?" We got talking, and I went over to audition. And so none of this is really remarkable as far as a story goes for how did you get in the band. But the interesting stuff to me is you had Daniel Vernon, who is the bassist, Casey Frederick, the drummer, and Chad as a guitarist. And I think that is all they had. Yes, I'm pretty sure that was it. And I come over, and Daniel was nice, Chad was nice, but Casey, I got the impression he didn't like me. Like, there was something about me or something about him that he I got the impression he didn't like me. And I don't know if it was a couple of weeks, a month, or like like 6 months, like months. But at a certain point, we were like, well, I do know somebody who plays keyboards, because they were talking about the whole Dream Theater thing, because like Dream Theater and Rush was Dysforia's earliest, biggest influences. And so I was like, well, I know a keyboardist, and then we could have the real Dream Theater lineup. And so I think I was the one who reached out to Austin. He would clarify with me on that, but in any case, Austin ended up auditioning and getting into the band. And I found it funny because I think I had been with the band for a number of months by the time Austin came in. Not with the band, because that's part of the thing is Austin was made an official member of Disforia before me. I was not made, for some reason, I kept this number in my head. I think it was 6 or 9 months that I was basically in the band before I was, you're in the band now. You're officially a member of the band. But yeah, Dysforia's early days were interesting because they used to be, it felt like almost emo-like. Not in the music, the vocals for sure. Their first vocalist, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for some of the earliest stuff. Chad has it. I need it. I want it. It's really good. And by good, I mean bad. But the music was not anything like what you understand Dysphoria to be now. It was much more like kind of groove rocky. But when I joined, it became more melodic, I think, vocally for sure. Yeah, I played my first show with Dysphoria in a pool hall, I think. It was a pool. Yeah, it was a pool hall, and it was just in the corner. It was terrible. Anyways, so that's like 2008. Okay, so the band was formed in 2007, I guess. That's interesting. So I only came in a year after they were formed. So yeah, with us four, me, Casey, Chad, Austin. Okay, so 4 of us. No, 5. Me, Casey, Chad, Austin. Am I stupid? No, because Chad, 3, whatever, dude. Oh, Daniel. Everyone always forgets the bassist. Daniel, Austin, Chad, Casey, me. So that's 5 people. Okay, so 5 people in the band now. And let's see. Let's go to the discography here on Metal Archives. Yeah, so it was a year later, 2009, that we released our debut EP, Awakening, which is interesting because it has Children of the Stars on it, which we re-recorded, if I recall right, and we put it on the EP that came after that, which was Our Time to Find. Yes, we did re-record it. Yeah, and it's strange. It sucks, man, because it's kind of like you always wish that Iron Maiden would go back and like re-record at least like a few of their songs from their first 2 albums with Bruce Dickinson. Because, Paul Di'Anno's not bad, but hearing something like Killers or Murders in the Rue Morgue or Wrathchild re-recorded professionally, like with Bruce Dickinson, that would be great. So, to that same end, I would really like to go back and re-record at least like Puzzle Piece and Modified God. Those 2 songs I would like to re-record because they're fun. They're good. Dysphoria, Modified God, and Puzzle Piece. 3 songs. Some of these lyrics are really, really good. They were written by the guy who came before me. These are the lyrics to FYI. If none of us had ever been or ever will be, we would have no sadness. We will have no misery. There's a lot more to this than everything you would like to have. How is it so fair that we can have smiles on our faces while horrifying thoughts open their cases and fill so many hearts with a burning heat of hell? I'm sure we'd all love to witness your endless selfishness. There's a lot more to this than everything you would like to have. There's 6 billion people in this world, and we don't revolve around you. They're not that bad. I mean, I'm being a little bit hard because, we were all like 16, like 17, 18. 17, 18, 19 years old. I was 19. So it's probably unfair of me to like poke fun at these lyrics because they're, probably the first lyrics that the guy wrote. I remember his name, but I'm not going to say it because he was a nice guy. He was always nice to me. So I apologize if you're watching this, Mr. JS, we'll say. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, that's Awakening, 2009. But here's where things get a little saucy because so I told you that Austin was an apparition that kind of flatlined, and so he joined Dysphoria. I was in Prophecy, later to become Shadowseer, and Dysphoria both at the same time. Now, the little rub is I didn't tell Prophecy that I was joining another band. It was not cool of me to do. It was dishonest and spineless deceiver kind of thing to do. But I did not tell Prophecy that I was joining another band, and I kept it silent. I kept it quiet. I didn't talk about it when I was with them. I was actively engaging in deception, and I could go into a lot of psychology, like, lying and deception was sort of a survival tactic for me when I was young. And I think that has a lot to do with my family situation. And that I think bled into school, and that took a life on its own. I won't get into that, but basically I struggled with honesty a lot back in those days. And I'm very glad to have ended up where I am now. But anywho, so we release Awakening, this EP, and here's the thing. It's not like these two groups, Prophecy and Dysphoria, were completely, alien to each other. They weren't separated. Like we rubbed shoulders in social circles. So I had a lot of balls to lie to so many people, and to just expect that nobody's like, they're not going to say anything. They're not going to say anything. Because like what ended up happening is we were at a party with Cody, Tyler, myself, and Chad. And I think that was it, Chad. So we had 1 Dysphoria, 2 Shadowseer, and then me at this party. And Dysphoria had just released Awakening, this EP. And this is back when like you got MySpace. And you might have had Facebook, but it was like for college kids. It was kind of sterile and nobody really used Facebook. So everything was MySpace. And MySpace didn't have like, recommended friends. Like it wasn't as smart as Facebook. So I was not worried about these two guys finding out that I'm in another band, But we just released this EP, and Chad was playing the song, the EP, and I think Cody was like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting. John, is that you?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." He's like, "You're in this band?" And I was like, "Yeah." And Cody took it hard. God bless him. And I can understand why. Like lying is a serious thing because Cody was living in his world. He had an understanding of the world. And then this lie comes in and pops that bubble. And it's like, oh, the world I thought I was living in is not true because I've been lied to. The reality I understood is fake because of what you did to me, John. So he didn't use those words. I couldn't tell you what words he used, but he felt betrayed, rightfully so. And yeah, so that was very tough. And let's see. I think 2010, the year after this, Shadowseer kicked me out of the band. Prophecy, Shadowseer. I think they kicked me out of the band, and it only lasted like a day. Because what happened is they were like, John, you need to choose. It's Dysphoria or us. And I basically said, like, I can't make that decision. Like, that's not fair, you know? So do what you got to do, because I'm not leaving Dysphoria. And I left, and then they were like, they sent me a message on MySpace or something. It's like, yeah, you're out of the band. Oh, okay. And then like the next day it was like, dude, let's talk about this. Okay, great. They said, let's talk about this. And I stayed in the band for a little while. But so Dysphoria trucks along, and let me actually pull up Shadowseer, because stand by. Because there's some interesting history to deal with Shadowseer as well. Oh, okay, yeah. So the year after we did the Dysphoria EP, Awakening, there's my cat. Shadowseer released our EP, In the Company of Evil, which is pretty cool. There's some like rock stuff on there, a lot of gamma ray, primitive gamma ray influence. Prophecy, the song. Oh wait, no. All right, so the song "The Spirit of the Storm" rips off Rebellion in Dreamland lyrically, with that revolution, that kind of callback thing that happens in Rebellion in Dreamland. Dead Man's Cove, that's fun because it's a song about pirates and conceptually rips off Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Losing My Insanity ripped off that song title from Dio, his album Magica. Although, to my credit, I did not have that album. I did not know that there was a song called Losing My Insanity by Dio. Fly rips off the song, I think it's called Fight by Gamma Ray. Let me see. Gamma Ray, Fight. Yep, that song. We ripped off Fight with our song called Fly, which is about Robert the Bruce. Anyway, so released that album. And that was interesting because, actually, no, I got to be careful because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But suffice it to say, there were issues of production that I was not happy with. So then the year after that, we release Our Time to Find. And we have, at this time, I don't think he would have an issue with me talking about this. We kicked out our bassist, Daniel Vernon, because he would not give up marijuana, because he had a run-in where he got caught with weed. And we were like, dude, this is not okay. We need you to choose the band or pot. And he wouldn't give up pot, so we kicked him out. Casey could clarify, but I'm pretty sure that's what the situation was, because I was not part of that decision, you know, but I supported it wholeheartedly. Yeah, and then we took in bassist Brendan Green, and that was interesting because he's a nice guy, but he has a strong personality. Yeah, and this is a really good era. This is like cream of the crop. This is the best time to have been in Dysphoria as far as like an experience goes, because you had Austin, who's handling all of the media aspects of the band, Casey and Chad, who were handling the musical aspects. I was handling lyrics. Like, everybody had their slot and they knew their job and they did it. And there's more to it, but this is probably the most positive period of dysphoria for me. And I wonder if I have any. Yeah, I do. All right, let's share a song. Oh yeah, this is an interesting story. um Here's from our show in Las Vegas, and I'll tell you about this Las Vegas trip because it is something else. You notice that the past two times we've done this live stream, there have come a couple of points where I'm like, I'm not going to say names because I don't want to blah 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 blah. I don't want to out them on anything. I want to be respectful. I want to respect their privacy. This is a company that I am not going to have any such restraint with. So, hey, we released our EP, Our Time to Find, the year's 2011. And what do bands do when they start getting momentum? It's like, ooh, we've got a tour. So, yes. All right. So this all ties together. So Shadowseer, hot on the tails of our debut EP in the Company of Evil in 2010, Shadowseer decides we're going to tour. And so we set up a tour through a business called Rocky Mountain Hardcore. Let me find you a link to their site. I believe his name was Marty. Do they even still exist? They have a MySpace account. You trash. They have a Reverb Nation. Reverb Nation. I'm the #1 artist in my zip code. That's the kind of people who are on Reverb Nation. Well, I'll give you the Reverb Nation. Let me see here. Or I'll give you their MySpace. Yeah, that's no good. I'll give you their MySpace account. Justin Timberlake owns MySpace now, I think. And he's tried to make it more about music. Let me see. I need to confirm this is the Rocky Mountain Hardcore before I besmirch their name. Not that I'm trying to call down a ratings mob. I'm not telling you to go all give them a thumbs down. It doesn't look like this link is even working. Looks like the business failed. I hope it did. It deserves it. Deserves to fail. So back to the story. Shadowseer paid Rocky Mountain Hardcore $500 to book us 5 or 7 show dates, going through Bozeman, Montana, Boise, Idaho, Salt Lake, maybe another one in Montana. It was basically 5 or 7 shows that we paid Marty at Rocky Mountain Hardcore, I'm pretty sure his name is Marty, to book us this tour. And so I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So that's how you do it. You get a booking agent. Now, for those of you who are watching, please let me know, comment if what I did was bad, because I've owned up to the dishonesty that I engaged in before. But I want to know if you think what I did was a shit move. So Dysphoria at that same time was like, oh man, we should tour. And I was like, oh, I know a guy, Rocky Mountain Hardcore. We'll pay him $500 and he'll book us a tour. Okay. So I took the contact that Shadowseer made through Rocky Mountain Hardcore and I gave it to Dysphoria. And I didn't tell Shadowseer. And I wasn't trying to be dishonest or go behind their back. I just didn't even think about it. Well, anyway, so I gave the contact to Dysphoria. Dysphoria sets up a tour through Rocky Mountain Hardcore. Hunky dory. Well, Shadowseer finds out that I gave Rocky Mountain Hardcore as a contact to Dysphoria, and they're taken aback by it. And 2 days later or 3, I don't know, it couldn't have been more than a week. I get fired from the band. And this time it was for good. Um, so let me know if you think that was really a bad move on my part. I still don't think it was that bad. I don't think it was any kind of betrayal personally. Like I should have let them know for sure. This might make me come off as some kind of a sociopath. I murdered somebody. Is that wrong? Anywho, Francisco says it's not that bad. That's what I thought. I mean, I should have told him for sure, but to be honest too, I think they were consumed with jealousy. Um, Jealousy or just I don't know. I don't know what it is. I hereby revoke the jealousy thing. I'm not going to say what it was. I would rather hear it from them. I want to be as fair to them as possible because I still love them. But so here's where it gets interesting and why I hate Rocky Mountain Hardcore. So Dysphoria, we did pay. So after I was kicked out, of course, I was not obligated to do the tour with Shadowseer because I'm out of the band. But Dysphoria paid Marty $500 to book us a tour. And he listed out all the cities and the dates, and he said, "This is what we'll do." And he said, it would help, to print out some posters, and because we had a show in Salt Lake that he was going to book for us too. And he said, it would help if you took posters and put them up at the venue, And it's like, oh, okay. We're busy guys though, so we ended up not putting posters up at the venue. But that's okay. We paid him $500 to book us a tour. Well, it gets to about like maybe a few weeks before the tour is supposed to happen. Hey, we haven't got confirmation. Is this still happening? What's up? And I forget how the interaction went, but basically he didn't do anything. He took our $500, and to our understanding, we only had 2 shows. We had one in Grand Junction and one in Salt Lake, and one that we already got on our own in Las Vegas. So he booked us, we thought, 2 shows. Okay. So we're like, we'll worry about this later. For now, let's just do the 3 dates that we do have. So we go to Grand Junction and we show up at the venue, and the venue is confused. The people there are confused. They're like, you're the band? You're performing tonight? Like, they had no idea who we were or like what the deal was. He didn't call them in Grand Junction. He didn't set up a show. And so they were nice enough. They gave us drink tickets. They let us play, but we did that, and then we drove to Las Vegas through the night. And on the way, we accidentally hit an eagle with our van. We think it was an eagle or a hawk or some kind of big bird. Anyways, we go to Vegas. We play Vegas. That was kind of fun. And then we go back to Salt Lake to play our show in Salt Lake. And I'm like, okay, we don't want a repeat of Grand Junction. So we call the venue in Salt Lake that he was supposed to have booked for us. And no answer. Okay. We wait till later in the day. We call again. No answer. So we call Marty at Rocky Mountain Hardcore and we say, hey, we can't get a hold of the venue. Like, do you know if the show's still on for tonight, right? And he's like, oh, I haven't heard anything. Or no, he didn't even say that. He was like, you guys didn't put up the posters, and I told you to. Like, he put it on us for not putting up the posters, yet it's like the show wasn't booked. Like, how did you know? Like, it was just a lame ass excuse, and he stole our money. And after that, we tried to keep a good relationship with him, and we were like, look, can you at least book us 4 shows in Salt Lake that are paying gigs? And he said, yeah. And he booked us 1 show, and it didn't pay, and so we're like, we're just not going to affiliate with you anymore. You're a piece of trash. Rocky Mountain Hardcore, run by Martin. I forget his last name. Marty. I think his name is Marty. I couldn't tell you, but yeah, he was a piece of trash. God bless him. I hope he has a good life, but I do not appreciate him stealing money from us because he wouldn't give us our money back too. That was a funny thing about it too. Anyways, so that's 2011. Oh no, the icing on the cake is that, so I was kicked out of Shadowseer, and they had that tour coming up. Well, they couldn't find a singer in time to do the tour. So what do? They ask if I can do the tour for them. Not join the band again, but do the tour with them. Am I getting paid? No. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I've got a job. I was working at Chevron. Really, really important stuff. I was like, I'm sorry, guys, I can't do it. You kicked me out, and I would be taking time off work that I don't want to, make waves at work for something like this. And they're like, please, can you do anything? Cody's family is, well, I don't know. I'm not going to go there, but I was under the impression that his family had a lot of money. I didn't try to extort him, but I was just like, look, if I'm going to be taking time off work, because I didn't have paid time off, I was like, I need to be getting paid. And Cody was like, all right, I'll tell you what we can do. Like, I think he gave me a gift card with $100 on it. And I think we agreed on 300. I think we agreed on $100 per show and all expenses paid, because part of the thing too was, yeah, I could take this day off, I could take that day off, but I can't do any more than that. So I drove with them to play Colorado and another show, and then they flew me back, and then they did a couple more shows, and then they flew me out, and then flew me back. And the thing about it is the shows sucked. I mean, they were okay, but the thing of it is, like, oh, when I got there, when like we left on the tour and we did the shows and that kind of thing, but when on the road, I was like, oh man, like, money really is tight. These guys are really tight on money. And I felt kind of bad because I'm like, I'm getting $300 out of this, but I'm not going to push them for the money till we get back and they have some time to recover, because I see that time is, not right. So I get back, everything calms down, and I'm like, hey, can I, get paid what we agreed on? Don't really get anything back. Anyway, long story short, they drug it out. They drug it out a long time, and they not paying me. And Tyler ended up like disowning me as a friend, like having nothing to do with me because of this. And what I think happened is the agreement that Cody and I made, I don't think that he communicated it to the rest of the band. And so I think the rest of the band thought that I was some money-grubbing person who was trying to milk money out of them for the tour. And so they were resentful of me. Eventually, they're like, fine, let's meet and we'll give you the money. And I showed up and gave me the money, and they like walked away. They wanted nothing to do with me. They were pissed off. I can only assume that he didn't tell them the agreement we had, and that's why they thought that I was some money-grubbing person, or else they were being hysterical and just real jerks about it because we made an agreement. If they knew that we made an agreement and they still felt, because like ultimately what they said at the meeting where they gave me the money was something like, I don't know, I forget exactly what it was, but basically it was like, we paid for you, we paid for your food and all that, and now you want more, like that kind of thing. And I don't know. I was like, this is just what we agreed on, man. I'm just holding you to the agreement. Like, I wouldn't have done it if I wouldn't have done it for free food. And, like, I'm not in the band. I have no skin in the game. Anyways, that's that's nothing. Nothing now. And I should note that we made up and we're all fine and cool now. um, and I would hope that if they watched this, they would not, you know, be offended, because I feel I'm being pretty accurate to events, and I've owned up to everything that I've been poopy on. Anyways, so between the Our Time to Find and the Age of Ether, what happened? Who did we had some lineup changes. Yeah, we lost our bassist. Dysphoria could never keep a bassist. Every new release, we had a new bassist. So for this one, we had Alex Facholas. He was from California. He was a big guy. It was kind of weird because we were all in our like mid 20s, and he was this like 30-plus-year-old guy, which isn't that big of a deal now that I think about it. But at the time, it was like, who's this old guy? I'm almost 30 myself now. And Dayton Anderson on the guitars. So that was the lineup that most people knew us by. Let's see. Yeah, I'll share the music video we did for Our Time to Find, which is pretty fun. Kind of a neat little thing. I'm playing bass. During this time period, we started playing shows out of state more often. And I got a link for that. Kind of neat little trip down memory lane. This is a little crappy tour documentary that we made about our exploits in Denver. We fostered very good relations with some bands down in Denver. You might know Vacant Throne, but you probably know Josh Mortensen from Craftion. He was in Vacant Throne, and we were all good friends, and so we played a lot of shows in Denver. We became tight with them. I love those guys. So yeah, that kind of covers the interim. Nothing really special happened between then. We did Grillfest. Do I have anything of Grillfest? Grillfest is kind of interesting. Grillfest is like the ultimate. Let me see if I have anything. Grillfest is a something started by Brendan Green, who is our bassist. And basically what it was a backyard barbecue, but with metal bands. And it would be like all day playing metal and rock and electronica, like whatever our friends were playing. I'll do one more search. Grillfest Dysphoria. Hey, there's the other Dysphoria. Quick tangent. There was another band. Here we go. 8 years ago. Goodness gracious. This is another crappy little video on. It's a 3-part video, so you can find the other 2, but that's one. So quick aside, there's an Italian crust punk band called Disforia, and I remember they ended up sending us a message on Facebook or MySpace, basically saying like, you should change your band name. If we ever see you at a show, we're kicking your asses. And I was like, you're welcome to try, Padre. You're welcome to try. Of course, it's easy to talk tough for both of us. It's easy to talk tough over the internet. I've held my own in confrontations before, but I'm not a fighter. I'm a negotiator. Oh, that's a good story to tell. Okay, but I'll keep it to. No, why not? Okay, so Grillfest. Grillfest was started by Brendan Green. It was, in his backyard, and it would be all of our friends' bands, whoever wanted to play. And the idea was like from noon to 9, nothing but music, nothing but friends. And it was amazing because he had this backyard that like went down, and then in the corner on the bottom was the platform where the bands would play. It was like a backyard natural amphitheater And it was awesome. We'd hang out, we'd drink beer, we'd, you know, cook brats, that kind of thing. It was paradise. It really was. It was amazing. Um, where was I going with this? Grill Fest. There was something I really wanted to talk about here. Grill Fest. What was I talking about? I went from crust punk, Disforia, the band in Italy, talking smack, saying they were going to beat us up. Boy, I have the memory of a goldfish sometimes. Oh well. Boy, a fight. Yes, Harley. Very, 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 very good, Harley. Thank you. That's perfect. This is a good story. So, I have not been drunk since 2016. I don't know. I think that part of my life is over. I got really drunk at Vakken Open Air. And for like a day or two after that, I was just like, I don't want to touch alcohol. Keep it away from me. I can't look at alcohol. It was really bad. So before I get into this story, Casey says how people left all the trash at Grill Fest and it was canceled from then on. I'm not aware of that, but that wouldn't surprise me because the whole thing too is like, you know, it wasn't Brendan's house; it was his parents' house. So all of this was, you know, made possible by his parents. So hey, that wouldn't surprise me if people left trash and then Brendan's dad was like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. Your friends suck. Anyways, so I haven't gotten drunk in 3 years. I haven't gotten drunk and I feel fine. But when I was a drinker, when I got drunk, there were two things that I really had a proclivity to do. Number one is I would take my pants off. Not like I would get naked. I would just be in my boxers. Apparently, when I'm drunk, I want to be free. And these clothes can't contain me. So I would take off my pants. The other thing I would do is I really enjoy my hair slicked back and to feel wet on the face or whatever. I don't know, man. It sounds like I'm describing some weird animal, which I guess I was. But so take off my pants, put water on my face. So at Brendan's house, this wasn't Grill Fest, but this is just a good story because it's kind of related. At Grill Fest, no, at Brendan's house, we were having this party. And I had a girlfriend or a girl I was dating. I don't think she wanted to be my girlfriend. Yeah, we were just dating. But I was drunk at this party. And so what I did, I was hanging out with her and a couple other people in the kitchen. And I put my head under the sink. I wet myself and I like put the towel over here. Ah, that's nice. And she takes the little hose thing and she sprays me. And I'm like, don't do that. That sucks. And she does it again. And you do that to a drunk person. What's a possibility? What might happen? What might happen if you spray a drunk person with a little hose? I fell backward. And I fell backward with my ass into the stove window. And I broke the stove window with my butt. And so Brendan comes in and he starts seeing red. He is infuriated. He starts cussing and he's going to beat the shit out of me and people have to hold him back and he's like he's going to beat the snot out of me. So like this girl I was dating and I and a couple others like we go out and we go for a walk, you know. Ugh. He apparently went downstairs and punched a hole in the wall. Like he was out of his mind. Well, I come back and I'm like, I don't think we should go back inside. So we hang out on the front lawn and he comes out at some point and he's still drunk off his butt. And he gets up in my face and he's like, I don't know what he was yelling, but he was mad. And I was like, hey, calm down, dude. Like we're going to handle this. Call me tomorrow. We're going to work it out. We're going to fix it. You know, you're not going to have to buy a thing. It's going to work out. I forgot what the exchange was, but he was ready to kick my ass, and I talked him down. That's what I remember out of it. But yeah, there's a little description of drunk John behavior. Anyway, so this leads up to the Age of Ether, Grill Fest, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And so this is where things started to go south for Disforia. I told you that my favorite era of Disforia was Our Time to Find, that span of time. The Age of Ether, like 2013 into 2014 is where things started to get weird. So I must have been, like 23, 24. Now, I told you some of the behavioral issues that I had, like struggling with being honest, that kind of thing. Well, let's see. There's some last stuff to share on this journey. I want to stay positive as long as I can before getting into any of the negative. So I'm sharing some links of some really good shows. Oh yeah, there's a couple more good stories to share. There's a couple. Yeah, it doesn't have to be all negative. Let's stay in Happy Land for just a little while longer. What year is this? I want to know. 2013. Okay, so I'll edit what I just said. 2014, I think, is where things started to go sour. 2013, I think we were still fine. So what happened is, like I told you, that I really like competition. I really friendly competition. Not like I want to kill you, but it's like, even if it's at a performance with bands I love. Like, say we were performing a show with Visigoth, and they went on before us, and they rocked the house. I'd be like, ooh, oh, we got to kill those guys. We got to destroy them. Not that I hate them. Not that I have anything against them, but it's like, oh, yeah, we're going to one-up you. You better watch your butts. So all that's to say that I told you that relationships between me and Shadowseer are good now, but they weren't totally at the time. There was still like kind of a tension. There was definitely a tension, even though we sometimes pretended to like each other, kind of frenemies, like Austin and I were back in the day. But so all of this is to say that when Shadowseer did get their grounding again with a new singer, and then another one, which is the one that you know, probably, Alex Ignatovic. When Shadowseer got grounded again, they got active on the local scene, that kind of thing. And this is when Dysphoria started taking ourselves more seriously, even more than in 2011, which was really good. Dysphoria was a good band. A really good band. Well, so we started getting involved with local promoters. And another quick aside, we got involved with this company called Monolith Entertainment, and pretty much a scam as far as I'm concerned. An old high school friend of ours, Chris Kilborn, maybe he's on to honest, good business adventures now, but it was a ripoff. It was basically like band management, where the guy at the top would assign you to a band manager, and that would be your band manager. Well, we got hooked up with them, and we got our band manager, and we were like, okay, Sabaton is coming to Salt Lake. Like, we really would like to get on with that band. We really want to open up for that band. And he was like, I'll try. I'll do my best, but just don't hold your breath. All right, I'm gonna do my best. And like maybe a few days, a week later, we're like, all right, any update? He's like, oh, excuses, blah, 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 blah. And me being I'm chilled out now, but I was much more piss and vinegar back then. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and take the reins then, because it's obvious that you have not really done the calling around. So I got in touch with one of the promoters, and he hadn't heard from this guy, and he put us on the bill with Sabaton. And so I go back to the band manager, and I'm like, Yeah, so I talked to the promoter and he put us on with Sabaton. What's up? And he started huffing and puffing, and we severed our relationship with Monolith at that point. So there you go. Go out and get it done yourself. And that kind of marked where we were taking ourselves much more seriously. So back to the rivalry between Shadowseer and Dysphoria. Um, I think was this for I think this was for Sabaton. We played a couple shows with Shadowseer, but I'm going to say it was Sabaton because it's not that important, and I think it was Sabaton. So we we got on Sabaton, and then Cody's like, "Man, how did you get on with Sabaton?" And I was like, "Oh, I talked to the promoter, and we came to an agreement, and we got on the show." And he was like, "Do you think that I could, Shadowseer could do that?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah." I gave him the promoter's contact information, and they went from there. And um, Cody comes back at a certain point, and I forget how it happened, but basically, I found out that they had sold more tickets than us. And here's another one where it's like, you can let me know if I was out of line or if he was out of line. But to me at the time, I was like, we got you that opportunity. And now you're like deliberately trying to sell more tickets than us. It sounds ridiculous, but this is what was going through my head. It was like, we got you this opportunity, and now you're going to sell more tickets than us. You're intentionally trying to sell more tickets than us, I guess, is the rub. And so you're going to be the direct support, and we're going to open the show. Really? And he was like, yeah, man, like we haven't played any shows for a long time. We want to come back with, I think they had Alex Ignatovic at this time. So he's like, we want to come on with our singer we're really excited about, and we want to have a really good show. And, it's a special event. And it's like, to be fair, I get it. I totally sympathize. I do. But that doesn't align with my interests. So I'm I wouldn't say that I'm not proud of this, but I'm not proud of it either. I'm agnostic. I'm neutral on this for what happened. So I was like, well, how many do you think, because I want to know what we have to beat, how many tickets do you think you'll end up selling? And he was like, well, we've sold like 64 now. I don't know, like maybe we'll sell 72. And I'm like, oh, man, I don't think we can do that. Maybe, but if not, congratulations. Oh, okay. And so I was like, okay, I have him neutralized. Now I'm going to go and sell as many tickets as I can because I still want to beat him. So I sold as many tickets as I could, and I got us up to like me and the rest of the band. I think most of it was me, if I'm being honest, not to be egotistical, but it's like I think I did the lion's share of the work on that one. But I went out and sold as many tickets as I could, and I got us up to 82 or 84, I think. But that wasn't enough. Like, I wanted to dominate. And I didn't want to leave anything to chance because I think this is the first time we were going to open up for a big band. And I loved Sabaton at the time. So I'm like, I'm selling all of the tickets. And I couldn't sell any more. So I went to the pawn shop and I pawned off anything that I could to just get the money for the tickets, to basically just give to the promoter. Now that I'm a little older and just a little bit wiser, I'm like, you basically just gave the promoter money. You realize that? I mean, maybe I like to think that we gave Sabaton the money, but anyways, by hook or by crook, I sold 100. We, is the band, sold 101 tickets. I think it was 101 tickets. So we show up to the venue that day, and we go in, and they're like, dum 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 dum, bum 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 bum. They're like playing Carolus Rex at the sound check, like, oh, starstruck. Oh my gosh, we're opening for Sabaton. And the promoter comes up and he's like, all right, guys, let's do a ticket count. So me, Cody, and Daniel Alexander from Grave Shadow. I don't know if Grave Shadow's still alive these days, but we go up to do ticket count with the promoter. And I positioned myself on the end because I saw the way things were going. And I was like, I don't know. Like the whole time I'm like checking out Cody, I'm like, is he acting like, is he acting too sure of himself? Does that mean he sold more tickets than us? Oh no. Well, all right. How many did you sell, Alexander? Grave Shadow? He was like, oh, we sold 26. Okay. Ticket, money, money, money. Shadow Seer, how much you sell? Cody was like, 76. And money, 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 ticket. How much did you sell Dysphoria? 101. And I just stare forward, and in the periphery of my eye, I see Cody's posture go from this to this. And I feel bad talking about it now. I wouldn't do anything different. I would have sold. I would not have gone to the pawn shop. But I don't feel bad about what happened because I wouldn't have done anything differently besides not going to the pawn shop. I feel bad that I made him feel bad, but I can't help that. The approach he showed me was, sorry, John, it's just business. So it's like, okay, sorry, Cody, it's just business. And we played the show, and it was a really, really good show. It was the biggest show we had played up until then. Casey's in here with us now. He says the best part isn't even that we gave so much money to the worst promoter in Salt Lake City. Hopefully Sabaton, as you said. It's that opening for a band, no matter what order, doesn't mean anything. Boy, that's sad. That's sad because it's so true. Bragging rights, he says, maybe, and a kick-ass show, but we used to think we would have some huge break in that position. So I'm going to talk about that for a second because that's really sad because it's so true. We got to open up for Devil Driver, Sabaton, Halloween. That was a dream come true. And we opened up for some other band that was big in Canada for a little while. I forget them, but we opened up for some pretty big bands. That is something to be proud of for sure. However, having graduated to, I would go so far as to say we're in a semi big boy band. We're not like a big boy band like, Iced Earth or anything like that. Even Unleash the Archers is probably, Unleash the Archers is above us as far as like Judicator goes. As much as I wish that wasn't the case. But even just for where I am now, because okay, so what I have to say is one of the tours that Dire Peril did, we interacted, with Sirenia. When Dire Peril toured with Sirenia, we were one of the guys. We were one of the big boys. We were on the bill. We weren't a local opener. And so Dysphoria, we get to open up for, if Dysphoria had been in that position, we would have been opening for Sirenia and Dire Peril and Threat Signal. We would have been like, oh man, we're opening up for Sirenia. How cool is that? Dysphoria opening up for Sirenia, the local band. Every show we played where we had a local opener with Threat Signal and Sirenia, and every show we played where there was a local opener, somebody would bitch about it, and they would have nothing positive to say about the locals. This one guy in particular, I don't think it's any bad. I think his name is Oliver, if I remember. Oscar. He's a guitar tech or something, and I saw him on the Seven Kingdoms tour that Dire Peril did too. No, and I saw him with. He was at the show that I went to, Demons and Wizards in Denver. I was like, Oscar, what are you doing here? But he was like, I fucking hate local bands, just in Chicago, he was laying into local bands. He hated them. And it was like, we have to, because of local bands, they come in and they try to set up their merch booth wherever they can, like the best place. So we had to start saying the local bands have to set up their merch last. So I don't know how, It seems to me like that would have been a no-brainer. So, but the way he was talking, it's like that was something they had to implement. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, Oscar, please. But yeah, it was just it was really eye-opening to hear people higher up talking about basically the kind of band that we were, like we thought that it was going to be some big break. Casey says the only one that led to anything was Devil Driver. I got the bassist's number, but when we reached out to him a few months later, his number had been disconnected. um Casey says, did you already talk about the show where we opened up for that ska band called Bad Manners and there was no clapping between songs? It was just completely dead. No, I don't even remember that. I don't remember that. Like I said, we're going to be doing this is just my perspective, and there's a lot more in here that Casey, Austin, and Chad could expound upon. I don't know if Dayton's going to be there, or Alex Facholas or Daniel Vernon. I don't know how big this video that we're going to do about dysphoria is going to be, but we're going to have a much broader and in-depth perspective than what I'm giving right now. So yeah, opening up for the ska band is something we'll talk about, I'm sure. Yeah, so I think it's about time to get into Age of Ether because now we're 13 minutes. We're not that bad. Okay. Yeah, so that to me was like the positive, the last breath of real positivity before we started turning on each other, for lack of a better way to put it. Yeah, we played these shows and it was great. We did contests. We did our Indiegogo campaign, which was successful, but my perspective is that things started to go sour when I got Hansi Kirsch on the album, and I'll tell you why. Well, no, it actually didn't. I think that was part of it, because the problem started before that. Basically, what killed Dysphoria, from my perspective, is that we started taking things way too seriously. We started giving things way too much credit for like how important they were, or what the ramifications would be. I forget. Let me go to the members here on Metal Archives so I can follow the timeline. Boy, howdy. Yeah, so by then we had lost Daniel Vernon, Brendan Green, Travis McKell, Robbie Pinnell, Alex Facholas, Alex Hinnerman. We were a revolving door. Who was the first to go? Wow. It was Casey and Alex. And Alex Hinnerman. Boy. This is territory where I'm like not proud of myself. Yeah, this is still relatively, it's not an open new wound, but it's like the way that I talked about lying to Shadowseer back in like 2011. It's like I can talk about that now and be like, yeah, that's fine. But like there's still a part of me now that is still me from 2014. Isn't it that like we every 5 or 6 years we're a totally new person, like biologically, like our cells are all regenerated. I need like, if this was 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, hey, 2020, I'll be a new man. Okay, so what we need to cover is how Casey and Alex Facholas left or were kicked out of the band. So by this point, Robbie Pinnell had quit the band. Alex Hinnerman had left the band. And so I think we were kind of, we saw the stakes as being really high, and we saw these people drop off, and we're like, well, they just couldn't cut it. They couldn't cut it. They weren't in it for the long haul. These people, we're making quality judgments on these people. So it happened. So Casey says Alex Hinnerman was after him. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, anyway, what I described is the general feeling for how we felt about these people. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, so basically, what happened is I forget if we got Hansi Kirsch before all of this started happening, but suffice it to say, we started taking things way too seriously, and we started seeing. I don't know if you work ethic. I think it was like work ethic concerns with Chad, and like nothing would really change. Like we had frustrations with Chad's work ethic. Um, and what scared us with Casey is he had a baby, and we were like, when you have a baby, everything goes downhill. When you have a baby, like the never the same, Never mind all the professional musicians nowadays who have children, but to us, like, oh, that baby's a threat. Um, and so I remember we did one of the most chicken shit things that you can do. We wrote letters to Casey and Chad explaining that they're out of the band and here's why. And like the snakes we were, we left them on their porches at night for them to find the next morning. And I forget what happened with Chad, but I remember with Casey. Or wait, no, it wasn't even with Chad. All of this was on Casey, I think. We did kick Chad out of the band at one point, and he tried to sell Disforia merch. He hid the post from us so that we couldn't see, but he had our Dysphoria merch, and he was trying to sell Dysphoria merch behind our backs. I only bring that up now because like that's not Chad. Chad is a wonderful man. Yeah. So I forget what happened with Chad. We had ethical concern or work ethic concerns with Chad, but it was Casey. Casey's the one that we gave this envelope to, and we convinced Chad that it was in the best interests of the band. And so we had all of these letters, and we left it on Casey's doorstep in the night, and we had band practice the next day. And Casey's not the kind of guy to take a shot and like lay down and be like, well, it's all over. Oh, well. He's not an Eeyore kind of guy. So what happened? We had band practice the next day, and we're like, all right, we're good. We have to have a game plan. We have to like get back on our feet, that kind of thing. Like, let's get down to business. But Casey, being the kind of guy he was like, oh, I'm out of the band, huh? Okay, let's talk it out in person. So Casey goes to, I think, Dayton's house where he knew we were having practice, and he's just waiting for us. And we show up, and it's like, hey, hi. Anyways, so that was super awkward. And Alex Facholas, and justifiably so, he was like concerned. He's like, look, if this is the way you guys handle business, how am I going to know that it's not going to be me getting the knife in the back someday? So that's a reasonable concern. But long story short, I don't remember the details, but we talked it out, and we all got on the same page, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go forward. We're sorry, just like all of this freaked us out. I forget how we kissed and made up, but we ended up moving forward somehow. And things went okay. Things went pretty well from that point forward. And then I think we got Hansi Kirsch. And in the middle of the recording sessions for The Age of Ether, now I'm going to be honest here. I've been fully accountable, so I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. I was party to the letters in the envelope, letters in the night to Casey. But we started having issues with Casey again. And really what it was, I think, is we were recording vocals and mixing with a guy named Dan Jones, I think his name was, of Chelsea Grin. And this was big. This was big. All right. Dan Jones, he's in Chelsea Grin. This is big stuff. This is serious business. And this is a contact that Austin got for us. And so, oh my gosh, this is big, big, serious business. Well, we start getting mixes back of the songs, and Casey has a lot of concerns. He's like, can we fix this? Can we fix that? How about that? How about that? How about that? He had like a little laundry list of little adjustments he wanted made. And my understanding was that some of these issues were stuff that couldn't really be, fixed at this point. They were problems from when we tracked it. I don't know. What was communicated to me is that the amount of things that Casey wanted fixed was unreasonable, and the things themselves, a lot of them, were unreasonable. And so this one, like I said, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I think Austin was the one pulling the strings on this one, where we ended up turning on Casey again, and we're like, Casey, basically the mentality was like, Casey's going to ruin our relationship with Dan Jones, and then we're going to have to find somebody else to mix the album, and it'll be all of this for nothing, like hysterics. So we ended up saying, like, Casey, I think we need to have a band meeting. Can you meet at this? Can you meet at this conspicuous, like, I think it was a park. Can you meet at a park tomorrow at 4:30? And I think Casey was like, and like, I think it was like the next day he was like, actually guys, I'm going to quit the band. Casey's with us right now. He says most of it was my drum tracks that didn't get fixed during quantization. There were just a couple that were mixing changes that no one else wanted to make. Yeah, so I wasn't. Austin was behind this one. The first time we tried to kick Casey out, it was me and Austin. This one was Austin. But yeah, Casey had had enough at that point, and I think he was just like, all right, I'm sorry, guys, but no, I'm not sorry, guys. You're going to screw me again. I see the writing on the wall. I know what this band meeting's about, so bye. So we had pretty much disemboweled ourselves at that point, because Casey and Chad had always been like the backbone of the band, whereas like Austin and I had been like the face of the band, I guess. So yeah, we disemboweled ourselves at that point, I think. And we managed to get on our feet pretty well, luckily, thanks only to Nate Dahlquist, who's in Arsenic Addiction, and he was in Dead Revelator and Hissingen. I don't know if the two latter bands are still active. I know Arsenic Addiction is. They're pretty cool. Check them out. They're like a gothic metal band, kind of like the we're having tea and then murder. One of those kind of bands. But we got back on our feet okay with Nate. And so we got things rolling again. We got another bassist, and we released the album, and it did very surprisingly pretty well for like where we were at. But despite that like peak, that good, peak that we had, the core problems within the band were still there. And they just weren't exacerbated because we were experiencing a high. But the thing is, when the high came down, those problems were still there. And so after all of the Age of Ether stuff kind of died down, we started thinking like, well, that's it. What next? What next? What do we do? And I'm like, well, we start working on new material. Hey, Churchill. I'm going to be Dr. Evil here. Ooh. So we start working on new material, and I come up with music that is really good. It's music that still is not produced. I may be giving some of it to Dire Peril because I don't want it to sit around forever. It's good music. But I start working on this music that's very like progressive and weird, and I'm like, And the rest of the band just wasn't really into it. We tried writing our own music as a group. Nobody was into it. I think that after the Age of Ether, the band was like, what do we even do anymore? You know, what do we do? We're going to go through the whole process again just so that we can have the same experience. And I'm like, no, guys, we have Hansi Kirsch, right? Hansi Kirsch offered Dysphoria the opportunity to tour with them in Eastern Europe in like 2014 or 15. But we did not have the money to make that happen. So unfortunately, I had to turn down going on tour with Blind Guardian. So there you go. And the band, it's like this, the same thing that happened. Alex Facholis was right, because the same thing that happened to Casey, Alex Facholis quit. He quit. He quit the band, if I remember right. But the same treatment that Casey got, Chad got. Chad didn't quit the band. We didn't fire Chad, but he got that kind of thing. We implemented these things like implementing a tally system. And if like you make an agreement to do something and then you don't, that's a tally. And if you get 5 tallies, then we have to have a conversation about whether or not you are even wanting to be in the band or something like that. And I think that's actually not that bad of a, I actually still think that's not a bad idea for how to run a band. But for the kind of band we were at the time, that wasn't helpful. Casey says, Alex quit because of how you guys treated me. That doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. He says, my last show was his last show in support of me. Boy, this is a bummer to talk about, but you got to own it, man. You got to own it. I'm not proud of the things I did or participated in or let happen, but if I don't own it, then I'm not better off, and I work to not be that way. You got to make mistakes and you got to own them. And Casey and I, he's on the live stream now, and so we're fine. We're in a band. We're in Principium, and we're working on an album right now that is it's going to be good. Harley says, I didn't realize this stuff was so depressing. You guys are one of my favorite bands. And Casey says, for the record, I hold no hard feelings toward anyone in the D. I'm friends with everyone still. Yeah, and I think time and maturity brings that about. Another biological thing, not only like every 5 years you're a new person, biologically, physiologically, whatever. If I remember right, the brain doesn't stop developing until you're 25 or 26. And I'm just looking at this now, and it's like the last new music that Dysphoria released was in 2015. We released a single, The Dying Firmament, in 2016, which was The Dying Firmament with just my vocals, no Hansi. But that was old. That was just like, we're going to keep something going. We're going to record we're going to show people that we're still active. Back when there was still just a little bit of hope for Dysphoria. There still is now, but we'll talk about that. Yeah, so let me go back to the members. Yeah. So the band ended up, so what happened to, all right, so the same treatment that like Casey got in particular is the kind of treatment that Dayton got, and Chad, but Dayton was not as tolerant as Chad. And so Dayton ended up leaving the band because the aforementioned tally system was just, it's a good idea, but it was not a good idea for where we were. It was unrealistic expectations for where we were. And so Dayton ended up leaving the band. So, and that's about it. The band after that kind of just started to drift. And I got frustrated at one point because like Dysphoria, here's the thing too, like I was in Judicator since 2012, the year after Our Time Defined came out, but Dysphoria was always my baby. I know that it was Casey and Chad's, but it's like I really cared about Dysphoria. Like it wasn't like this for me. It was like this. Like Dysphoria was something I cared about. I could have given Hansi Kirsch to Judicator. Hansi Kirsch could have been on At the Expense of Humanity, but I gave Hansi to Dysphoria because I cared about Dysphoria that much. And not being mean or anything, but I should have given Hansi to Judicator instead. And in fact, that's a big part of why I was like, Hansi, do you want to do another song with me? And he was gracious enough to do it. And so we got Hansi on The Last Emperor. And I'm so grateful because unless something crazy happens that tears apart Judicator, I don't think it will, knock on wood. I just wouldn't want something so amazing like getting Hansi Kirsch to sing a song with me to be associated with failure. And Dysphoria right now kind of has that bittersweet taste in my mouth. More to come on that. But I really wanted to get Hansi on something that I felt good about, that I knew was going to stay. Casey says, you and Austin had more successful bands outside of Dysphoria. I think that played a part also, but that's me looking at it from the outside. Oh, yeah, so that's what I was going to say. So Dysphoria was my baby. It was my baby too. But I had Judicator, and that was a side project. I was very clear about that. Chad joined Helion Prime, and that started to get a little bit bigger. Nate Dahlquist, our drummer who came after Casey, he was in Hissingen and Dead Revelator, and Chad was in Dead Revelator too, and Hissingen. So he was in like 3 or 4 bands. And that was it. But so basically the point is like everybody had all these things going on outside of Dysphoria, and I felt like I was alone, especially, see, and here's the thing. If Casey was still in Dysphoria, if we had not treated Casey the way that we did, then, oh yeah, and Austin had Machines of Man. He joined another band too. So everybody had all these other bands. But if we didn't treat Casey the way that we did, and Casey was still in the band instead of Nate, Dysphoria might have still survived or been growing, because there's this connection between Casey and Chad. That's just the way it is. Casey and Chad are like brothers, as far as I understand it. So, like when we severed Casey and Chad, we severed the spine of Dysphoria, and we could crawl. We did a sprint afterward, but we couldn't do a marathon, not without that engine of Casey and Chad. That's my perspective. So, boy, an hour and a half talking about Dysphoria. I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, so the other stuff that's more on the positive side. Let me get tour experiences. There's 11 things to talk about here. I don't know how much. The last thing I'll say on Dysphoria is all right, so recently I tried to get Shadowseer up and running because I'm like, guys, for old time's sakes, let's do a farewell song, because I understood that Shadowseer's pretty much done for, and I still love the guys. Let's do a farewell song. Go all out. Make it a big, epic song. And, I'll do guest vocals or backing vocals, whatever you want, but I want to put a stamp on it. I'm the kind of guy who doesn't like to leave things hanging. I need a stamp. I need a handshake. I need a written formal agreement. So I tried to get Shadowseer to do that. And it did for a little bit. It turned into an EP. Then it was like, oh, we're going to do an album. And I was just going to guest on one song. But what I noticed is when I stopped driving Shadowseer to do that, everything started to fall apart. And they stopped all activity on it. And I'm like, I have done everything I can do. I can't do it for you. I can't make you walk. I can't make you ride a bicycle. I can't do the work for you. So as far as Shadowseer goes, I did everything I could. Now, Dysphoria is on hold. Whoops. Dysphoria is not broken up. Dysphoria is on hold. And I feel very strong about that. And there's a consensus, I think, amongst the remaining band members. My goal was to do a Dysphoria farewell show at the end of this year, but it's December already. We see how that went. My goal is now to do a farewell show in 2020. And I want to release a single or maybe an EP, like 1 or 3 songs. Austin and I started on 2 songs, but we didn't finish it. And we have 1 song completely written. And we even recorded like a demo of it. And it's really good stuff. It's really good stuff. So what I want to do is 2020 release an EP or at least a single for Dysphoria. And I want to do a show, a farewell show that covers like the beginning to the end. I would like to play stuff from all of our material. I'd like to play Dysphoria, the title, the namesake of our band, and like Puzzle Piece, the other, like that was like the staple of our set list when we were really young. I'd like to play Children of the Stars and Distraction and Our Time to Find and Of Wolves and Men and My Sacrifice. I would like to play maybe Chaos. I'd like to play Dream Eater. Half-Life for sure. Beyond the Walls of Misery, Lunar Sunrise, The Dying Firmament, and The Ethereal. I would like to do all of that. I would like to do a show where we say, this is our show. And however long it's going to be, is however long it's going to be. I'd like to have Casey drum. I'd like to have Nate drum. I don't know how that would be split up, but I'd like to honor the blood, sweat, and tears that both of them put into the band. I don't know. We got to talk. We got to have a meeting. We got to see if this is even something that they want to do. At least, like on paper, Austin and Chad have said that they want to do it. But I feel very strongly about this, and I feel that the stamp, the handshake, the nod that I got that I didn't get from Shadowseer, I could get from Dysphoria, because I don't want Dysphoria to be associated with failure or, disappointment. Because, like I said before, people still talk about Dysphoria. People still talk and express love for this kind of thing, and I think that Dysphoria deserves one last shebang, I'm going to go back through comments here because there was a lot that I went through, and I saw Casey was in here, so I made sure to respond to him because he could help me on some of this, but sorry, I just want to make sure that everybody gets recognized. EdGuy24 says, ugh, band drama. I was in a band for 3 months and that was enough for me. I'd rather do projects than solo stuff. There's a little something to be said for that, because I tell you, man, being in a band is one of the most thankless jobs that you can have. Like nobody, it's not anymore, I don't think, but there was this idea that like, wow, you're in a band? Dude, that's awesome. Like, no, nobody has that reaction. People who know you, like if I'm at a metal show and somebody's like, oh dude, John, I love Judicator, nice to meet you, man, blah 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 blah, let's take a picture. Okay, cool, that's awesome. But if I'm at like a family reunion or talking with old friends or something, it's like, oh, you're in a band? Okay. Nobody gives a shit. Yeah. All right, that's about it then. I really would have enjoyed having Hansi on at the expense of humanity. I think that would have been really cool. Okay, so we're going to move on from now. Build a super group from the musicians you are friends with, multiple groups if you'd like to explore various genres. That's from Harley. Basically, I would say I want Dysphoria back. I want the classic lineup. I want me, Chad, Austin, Casey, and who would be bass? Jason Ashcraft actually played bass for Dysphoria. He was never a member of the band, but if Dysphoria like kept going, Jason was like, I want to be in the band. Jason wanted to be in Dysphoria, but things started going downhill before that had the possibility to come to fruition. Um, Jason, I'd want Jason to do bass. And here's the thing too, like for this Dysphoria farewell show, I'd like to have like on a Friday we have an EP listening party, and it's like a really like event, and then the next day we do the show. Yeah. But as far as like other people, I thought about this, and I can't put together a super group of like my contemporaries. Like what I can say is I would like to work with Jake Rogers from Visigoth. I don't know how that would happen, what it would look like, but I would really enjoy seeing our vocals together. I've done work with Brittany Slays from Unleash the Archers before. I think we have a good dynamic together. I really like Unleash the Archers music. Paul Black. I kind of get my dream, because I've sung with Paul Black, and I think there might be an opportunity to have him on the next Judicator album, not the one that's coming out in 2020, but the one after that. Francisco says, "Would you have Hansi as a guest for a concert if Judicator were to tour through Germany, and we went through Krefeld or Dusseldorf or any of those like kind of more northwestern towns? I'm pretty sure that Hansi would come out. I would venture to say that Hansi would come out and do Spiritual Treason with us. I feel pretty darn confident of that, unless he had some kind of previous engagement. I know he's very busy, but I think that he would, for sure. I gotta say, like, because yeah, I remember when I first met Hansi, and he was like, we were hanging out in one of the green rooms, and he was like going through the lyrics of The Dying Firmament again. He was like, tendons bridge appendages, and bones are cast aside. Our bones, our DNA in vials for the day we finally are found. He was like, these lyrics are very good. I like this. And I'm like, yeah, that's about all I can say. It's like Mercedes. I love her voice. So Judicator is like the primary vehicle for singing with people I want to sing with now, because I'm glad that Judicator is, as a band, is like open to having guest vocalists in that capacity, because everything is so like story driven. As far as the Principium album we have coming out, I don't think there's any. I don't think it's the right vehicle for guest vocals. If Principium did a single after this album or a cover, that could be cool. Like, think Jake Rogers. Like, okay, like maybe. You know what I was thinking about today? I was thinking, what is it called? It's a Rich Man's World by ABBA. It's like money, money. I would love to do a cover of that, but metalized, and get me and Jake Rogers. That would be awesome. Okay. What else did we want to talk about? I think it's going to go pretty quick from here, because really the big thing that I wanted to talk about was the rise and fall of Dysphoria, and kind of trying to not go overly long. Like, we're at an hour and 45 minutes here. I'm going to kind of fly through these questions, which I know, I hope you're all right with that. But YouTube plus Kappa equals the end of YouTube by Tanner Breeze. Here's the thing. YouTube is not in the right hands, in my view. YouTube is owned by Google, right? That doesn't surprise me. Google is the devil. Google is the Disney of the internet. I think YouTube is on its way out, just because YouTube continually encroaches on alternative and conservative source or producers. And I'm not trying to sound conspiratorial. Like, that's just the facts. Um, so I think YouTube is on its way out. It's being sanitized. It's being cleaned up, and I think it's going to be eventually in the end game. I think you're going to see YouTube seen as a sort of vehicle for mainstream media sources, mainstream producers, um, people like what is it, game theory? Like it's only a game theory. Um, I think a lot of producers like that are going to go bye bye eventually. I think they're going to move to another platform. I think it is going to get to a point with YouTube where the frustration is so high that another producer or a platform comes in and saves the day and people start flocking. You've already seen attempts at it with like Gab, but Gab started to get kind of a bad name because I guess like alt-right people were there and active on there. Casey says YouTube keeps shooting itself in the foot, but that foot can still squash any other competitor at this point. There is no platform that even comes close to its size and reach. Bingo. I'm not saying that Kappa is going to be the end of YouTube this year, next year. I think that YouTube, as far as like, I don't know when it's going to happen. I just see it as an inevitability. I can't tell you when it's going to happen, but the fact that we see concerted efforts to create alternative platforms. I remember Jordan Peterson was talking about, I think he actually is in the process of making a social media platform where the idea was really cool. It's like a social media platform where it's based on the sharing of ideas, and you have a minimum character count for each post. And so I think that would be interesting because like you could still have trolls and like shit posters, but you'd have to be elaborate, you know? I think it's a good idea. Do I think it'll work? I think there needs to be a lot more to it, and there probably is because I haven't heard anything in a long time. So it's either fallen through or they're still working on it. But you have Gab, and I'll tell you, I actually just subscribed to Free Speech TV, run by Gavin McInnes. Not really for his content, but for Soph's. If any of you know Soph, she was kicked off of YouTube for wrongthink, essentially. She had things to say about protected classes, for lack of a better way to put it, that could not have been abided by, you know? So I think that YouTube will lose its thunder, but it could be 5 years. It could be 8. It could be 3. Maybe 3. I'm thinking more like 5. We'll see, though. Edu Falashi by Anthony De Christianis. I already talked about Edu. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. Morality as a product of evolution of cooperation. And that was from David Levin, I think. And I'm pretty sure he's the one who actually bought me the book, The Origins of Virtue, by Matt Ridley. And I haven't finished it, but I'm familiar. Actually, have only started it. But basically, the idea is that humans, being primates, being team players, you know, evolved in such a way that teamwork, cooperation was important. And this importance placed on this, like, what would you call it? Like a culture, behavior, a proclivity toward teamwork, toward working together, sort of like socially evolved into, I don't know, what you might call like social contract theory, where basically I tell Casey, hey man, my wife got murdered. That sucked. Murder sucks because I liked her. And now she's gone. Why don't you and I team up and say, look, in our village, you can't murder because that sucks. And Casey says, okay, no more murder in this village. And so we just establish rules. That's our social construct, our social contract to not murder. Oh, stealing sucks. You know, so we make stealing outlawed. And this is one thing, like if we want to talk theology, like I'll talk theology like nobody's business, but regarding what I'm really interested in lately is moral realism versus moral non-realism. Basically, is there such a thing as an objective morality? Is our morals objective? This is something I'm still wrapping my head around. I actually took a whole bunch of notes. What is this? 4 pages from a lecture by some atheist giving his spiel on why moral realism is the case. But the problem is, trying to have moral realism without God doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, let me read you one of these syllogisms. We disagree about what matters. Disagreement presupposes something to disagree over. Unless we are massively confused, our social practices indicate something about reality. We are not massively confused, therefore some things actually do matter. Now, all 4 pages of this communicate it not as murder, rape, and theft are objectively wrong, but they matter. And it's like nobody's objecting that they matter. Even what's his name, Alex O'Connor, the cosmic skeptic. He's even like he would even say, I'm sure, that rape, murder, and theft matter. But as far as whether or not they are objectively wrong, that's the rub. So I'm actually going to throw this away because I didn't find any of it helpful. I did take notes. I was thinking a little bit more on it today. Basically, I'm not qualified at this point, I feel, to give any kind of a authentic discourse on, moral realism. What I will say, though, is it's interesting because I have done some debating about moral realism versus moral non-realism. And what I will say is that the people who say, nah, man, it's all relative. Murder is non-preferable. Rape is something that we experience as bad. Nobody likes to get raped. But it's not objectively bad. What I find interesting is these moral subjectivists, when their parents get murdered, they experience it as objectively wrong. They would talk about the murderer in a way that would lead you to believe they think that it was objectively wrong. So it's just interesting to me that everybody essentially is on the same page with regard to morals, that there are objective morals, that it is objectively wrong to murder somebody, that it is objectively wrong to steal from somebody. And it's really tricky territory because it's like, what are morals? It's easier to wrap your head around abstract objects like, or abstract realities like the laws of logic, the self, Mandelbrot sets, mathematical realities, numbers, that kind of thing. But it's like morals. Like my understanding of the theological explanation for objective morality is that moral, what would you say, imperatives are it's like a reflection of the mind of God. And so when you murder somebody, you are going against God's personality, I guess. This is where you can, I've made a full disclaimer that I'm being very careful here because this is not my forte right now, but it's something I'm greatly interested in. But something to that I find is like, so as far as making something objective, it's like, okay, so if humans were wiped off the earth, if all life in the universe, in the multiverse, were extinguished, would the laws of logic still exist? Would they still apply? Yes. 2 + 2 does not cease to be 4 just because there's no mind around to interpret it, to recognize it. Mandelbrot sets, mathematical realities, these kind of things, they exist whether or not humans recognize them. And so humans come out of the dim awareness into a enlightened awareness, and we discover Mandelbrot sets. We discover laws of logic. These things exist outside of us. Um, what they are and how they exist is not nearly as clear. But the thing about morals is morals are like relational, like even between humans and humans and I, me and the humans. Um, morals are relational. If all life in the world ceased to exist, would murder still be wrong? There's no context because there's no life in the universe. So how can murder be wrong? Like it's contingent upon people existing. And so that's what I find interesting. And this harks back to the last um, live stream that we did, where we sort of talked about what are humans made for? What makes humans really unique? We're made of flesh and bone. Pigs are made from flesh and bone. Okay, what sets us apart? We have opposable thumbs and fingers, so do chimps. What sets us apart? Well, in my mind, what sets us apart from the animals is our ability to abstract and our moral faculties. And so, in the same way, kind of a crude example, but in the same way that a chair is made for sitting, that is what a chair is made to do. Okay? We are made for something abstract. We are made for something moral. Humans strive, I think, for the perfect abstract. No other animal can abstract and imagine a straight line. A straight line is never found in nature. You just never find it. But we can abstract that. We can recognize mathematical realities like that. And so it seems to me that there's something ingrained within the human essence that is really drawn toward perfection of the abstract and perfection of the moral. And so it's like no wonder we have the conceptions of God that we do. It's no surprise at all to me because that's what humans are. And in fact, there are studies I've read that basically show that spiritual belief is like a part of human nature, that it is a natural inclination. So what did I write? Morality is relational. Humans alone have moral faculties, and humans alone are moral creatures. Good going, John. I think I did a better job than my notes. Yeah. That's about all I'll say right there. This is something that I'm still really interested in, and I'm not yet to a point where I can really like confidently talk about it like I could, for example, like the Holy Trinity or early church history or something like that. Stephen says, moral act as particles. Morals act as particles, but also act as waves in a split screen experiment, an observer included. The what was that? The double blind experiment. That's fun. So I wanted to be more thorough on that, but I think that's a good starting point for that. D's nuts from Osher. Nothing to say on that one except that guy's teeth. D's nuts. Got him. I hope that he has a good life. I feel bad for guys like that, but you also envy them, and that kind of makes me think about. It's like, okay, here's this big-toothed guy who may have some sort of mental disability, laughing his butt off on these nuts. But I think about what my priest was talking about a little while ago about how a lot of people nowadays think about like having a child with disabilities as some kind of like curse, like, oh my gosh, like, oh, we should abort the baby. We should, if our child has Down syndrome, we should abort them. Like I think they do in Iceland, which is a tragedy. It's eugenics, no way around it. It's eugenics. But he was talking about how, and it's interesting. I worked with, he was talking about how families who have children with Down syndrome and autism are very blessed. They're families who more often than not, have a very warm spirit about them. And I would just say, because my own experience working with autistic and Down syndrome youth, I worked for alternative behavior strategies as a behavior technician for about a year. And I gotta say that's true. It's not easy, but some of these households where they had mentally handicapped children, it's like these are really blessed, warm houses, and it's not easy to to wrestle with the unfortunate things that happen in our world. Like kids being born with disabilities, people dying before their time. You know, random acts of evil. The problem of evil. That would be a good live stream topic. That's called Theodicy, if I remember right. And the problem of evil is not really a problem at all. Um, Austin Dixon says, "Why Mandrake is the best Ed Guy album." I will say that and Rocket Ride were the tightest. Ed Guy has gotten a little bit flabby recently. I don't like. They're good. They're good, but the past three albums have been good, whereas Rocket Ride and Mandrake were like fire. Le Monk and Why Orangutans Are Inherently Funny. I think they're inherently funny because they look goofy. They have long, exaggeratedly long limbs, and they just kind of funny. They have those lips that you can like pull back. Really fun. Reunion tour of Dysphoria, already addressed that. Should Ovaltine be renamed to Roundtine because of the container shape? I don't even know what Ovaltine is, okay? What's the deal with airline food? Well, I'll tell you, it's all microwaved and packaged, and it's on the same level as any other microwave food. In fact, well, maybe just a little step up. I don't really have an opinion on airline food. If it's warm and hot, I'll take it, man. Because you ever been on a 12, 9, 8-hour flight? Oof. A warm meal goes a long way. Opinion on the Baby Yoda show. I have not seen The Mandalorian, but I have a little bit of thought on what's happening in the Disney camp. And I'll keep it limited to Star Wars, but well, what I will say too is I'm a great fan of the Alien franchise and the Predator franchise. And I'm worried, man, because as you know, Disney bought out Fox. I have right here a poster of Alien, and back there I have a poster of The Thing. Like, I know, is The Thing Fox? I don't know. I don't think The Thing was made by Fox. No, it wasn't. But you hear these stories about Disney like pulling shenanigans with theaters that would normally show like Alien or Fox shows, and now they can't because Disney bought them. They're not letting them do it. And I don't know. I remember Quentin Tarantino. He just released The Hateful Eight at the time, not now, of course. But he released The Hateful Eight, and he was going to show it at this really special theater. And he was super excited about it. But Disney said, we want to play The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens. I forget which one it was. But we want to play our new Star Wars movie in that theater. So we need you to renege on your Quentin Tarantino agreement and give us the theater at that time. Or else we're not going to let you play Star Wars at all. So Quentin Tarantino got screwed out of playing his movie that he loved in a theater that he loved. Disney, disgusting. So regarding The Mandalorian, I haven't seen it. I have heard a lot of hullabaloo about it, and I'm skeptical as to whether or not it's actually good, because people said Rogue One was amazing, and it was visually very nice, and it had a better story than any of the new trilogy. But still, Rogue One had really bad characters, and the plot didn't matter. It just didn't matter. And there were a whole bunch of other things that didn't make sense, like the AT-ATs at the end. Like that's an assault vehicle. That's like a assault vehicle. And yet they're using them against this small band of spies on this island that is like explicitly like imperial. Like I don't know, just nitpicking, sure. But anyways, so just because people are making a big hullabaloo about it, like with Rogue One, doesn't mean that it's good. So I'm not sure that Mandalorian is good. It's only available on Disney Plus. I don't support Disney, so I'm not going to get Disney Plus. Maybe I'll pirate it. I don't know. Maybe I'll watch it on one of those backwater websites like what is it, 123movies.com? Who knows? But what I will say is that my understanding is that The Mandalorian has been made by people who are competent, people with a vision, people with integrity. Like I remember reading a story about how they wanted to make Baby Yoda entirely CGI, and the director was like, "No, that's a stupid idea. Grow some balls." And I may be getting a little bit of that wrong, but the gist of it is true or accurate to what I read. So it makes me feel that The Mandalorian is probably in better hands. But what I will say is that Disney has really screwed the pooch on this new Star Wars trilogy. It seems like they have no idea what they're doing. They're just like throwing things in the blender with no real vision for what the franchise, what the trilogy is going to be about. I mean, the way that everything is panned out gives me no faith in Star Wars. Like, The Force Awakens was essentially a beat for beat remake of A New Hope. The Last Jedi was just, I think it was Rian Johnson intentionally deconstructing Star Wars just as a big middle finger. And the fact that the showrunners, like the Disney executives, let him do that just tells me that Disney doesn't understand their audience and they don't care about giving the audience what they really want. So I don't know, man. I'm going to be very excited to see this next newest Star Wars trilogy movie flop. It's not going to flop financially, but I'm really excited to see it get torn to shreds, because you may be aware that there have been a lot of like leaks and that kind of thing, a lot of talk from people who were allegedly in pre-screenings where they're showing different versions of the movie, because apparently they have not, or if they have, then it was only very recently, locked in a final cut of the movie. And let's see. So just everything that I'm seeing leads me to believe that it's going to be an absolute mess. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about on this, which is Force Awakens. Let's see here. I just want to pull it up. Okay, so I'm going off of Rotten Tomatoes, which is a shit site. But it's useful not because of the critic reviews, but because of the audience reviews. The critic reviews are unreliable because critics can be bought and paid for. You take a whole bunch of critics out to a really nice premiere showing, you wine and dine them, you give them special access, gift bags, all that kind of thing. You essentially bribe them and they give you a great review. That, and because Star Wars has been, for some reason, like politically charged lately. And I understand a little bit of that because the woman who plays Rose was apparently driven off of Instagram because of people who were like harassing her. So whatever, man. So Star Wars The Force Awakens has a 93% critic review, 86% audience score. Okay, so people generally liked The Force Awakens, fine. The Last Jedi has 91% from the critics. That's an A-. Do you think The Last Jedi deserves an A-? The audience score is 44%. That's an F. I saw The Last Jedi in theaters. I would give it a 44%. I would give it a 20%. I think it was a terrible movie with terrible vision, terrible storytelling, terrible characterization. It's like a good example of what not to do in any screenplay. So I'm hoping that the next Star Wars movie goes even lower. We went from 86 to 44, 46. So it basically went down by half. So if we go from 86 to 44 to 22, that'd be great. I would love that because hopefully Disney would get the point. It also is amusing to me that Disney, because they own Avengers, correct? They own Marvel. So how are they getting everything so right with the Marvel movies, but so wrong with Disney? I don't understand it. Um, Favorite pop star or toaster strudel from Steven? Pop star. I don't know. My wife has become fascinated with Billie Eilish, and I'm interested by Billie Eilish's style, even her music, but her lyrics and messages sometimes I think are like pretty much what you would expect from someone her age and with her experience. Nothing substantial. Really like the the music video where she's like, what is it, like good girls go to hell? It's like, really? Like 6th grade understanding of, okay, whatever. Last thing is, where do you hope to see yourself in 10 years, career, spirituality, etc.? Um, this will be the last question I answer because we're going on 2 hours, 13 minutes. Every single time I say I'm going to be shorter, but it never happens. So, where do I hope to see myself in 10 years? 10 years, I would like to be teaching at a school, doing what I love, teaching history and or philosophy, making enough money to where working for my wife is optional, because I think that in an optimal, in an ideal world, there's always a parent at home. Stay at home mom, stay at home dad, whatever. But I think there should always be a parent at home, at least until kids reach a certain age. Maybe when all the kids are in school, fine. But I think while kids are not in school, there needs to be a parent at home. And my wife is currently looking into an employment option that would allow her to work at home and get pretty good money. So I hope that she's able to do that, because then we could have kids at home. So basically 10 years from now, I'd like to be teaching college or high school history, philosophy, world religions, history, that kind of thing. Because you'd have summers off. I would like to get paid a lot of money. I'm almost done with my master's degree. I want to have my PhD in theological studies from Columbia International University. And as far as music goes, in the next 10 years, all right, so we're coming up on 2020. Let's call Judicator started in 2012, Principium recently, but let's go with Judicator here because that's like the big band that I'm in. Something big is happening with Judicator in 2020. I can't say what, but that is a big mile marker for Judicator come 2020. So what I'd like to do with Judicator in the next 10 years. So I'll be 30 in 2020. So before I'm 40, I want Judicator to have played all of the major festivals. I want, or most of them at least. I want Judicator to have played 70 Tons of Metal. I want Judicator to have played Wacken Open Air. Doesn't have to be the main stage at this point, but it needs to be on like not one of the crappy side stages, you know? Prague Power. I want Judicator to do all of these big things. I want Judicator to tour with a big boy band. Yeah, and of course, I already mentioned this, but I want Rachel and I to have kids. I want to have 3 children, maybe 4. We have names picked out for 4, so maybe we adopt 1 and conceive 3. The names we have so far are Theodore Graham Yelland, which would be Teddy Graham. Teddy Graham Yelland. Judith Magnolia Yelland. Judith, Judicator. Hazel Terrapin Yelland. because Terrapin Station is my favorite Grateful Dead album. And then Harrison John Yelland, because my wife loves the name Harrison. Maybe she has a crush on Harrison Ford. So that's about it. 10 years, I'd like to be ingrained in my career. I mean, if I could wave a magic wand, I would be making good money doing Judicator and other musical stuff, making full-time good money off of music. Who knows? Maybe it'll happen, but work for it. But, hope for the best, expect the worst. So expecting the worst, teaching, because that's something I would still enjoy. Anywho, I think that's about it for today. Today was kind of an interesting one. Most of it was on the rise and fall of dysphoria, which I think was a good thing. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope it was good for you. Was it good for you? It was good for me. A lot of really interesting history in there. I don't know that it's worth doing a documentary over. But boy, I tell you, like with digital assets, it's like you leave something on YouTube for enough years and it goes from like 4K to 1080 to 720 to 480. Next thing you know, it'll be like 244. It's like your video's gone, Your video's gone. So I've been concerned about backing up digital assets and stuff on external hard drive. I want to get everything I've ever done onto a hard drive so that my kids can go back and say, wow, you used to have hair. And I'll be like, oh yeah, Papa John had hair once. All right, I think that's about it. Vakken and 70 tons of metal. 70,000 tons of metal? Yeah, man, you go, JY. Thank you. Yeah, that's the goal. Really, I guess the last thing, because like to be signed, it's like, man, we've made it, But I don't think anything really changes once you're signed. I don't think being signed means what it used to mean. Because I know a good number of bands that are signed to a major record label. Can you hear my cat? She's going bonkers. But so it's like I think even when you're signed, you need to push forward no matter what. Like you can't rely on anybody else to do what you need to do on your own. So even if you get signed, then you still have to push. Play as many shows as you can. Get involved with the festival circuit as best you can. That's really where my head's at. Richard says, agreed with the new Star Wars. They wasted a ton of potential. That's how I feel. Wasted potential. Wasted potential. You had the chance to make up for the prequels, and instead you made it look like the prequels were pretty good by comparison. Not perfect, but the sequels had more imagination and character than the new trilogy. Harley says getting signed just means you got to work harder because crap's for real now. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Judicator, we have our new album recorded. It's being mixed right now. They're working on the drums. So we're hoping to release that first quarter of next year. Can't release it in February because that's going to be all about Demons and Wizards. We got to give Demons and Wizards February, or else we're not going to get any attention. So I'm thinking like March or April would be a good time to release the new Judicator album. But we already have all the music for the album that comes after that written. And I have the concept, and that'll be a good one. Okay, Steven. Yeah, I'm going to call it there. It's 2 hours, 21 minutes. Thank you guys so much. Hope you had a good time. This was really nice for me. And let's get this going again 2 weeks from now. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. Love you and take care.